Hello my fellow MCs, Primo here, and you just hit TL60 on your Honkai Star Rail account. But now, what are you supposed to do to take that next step? Today, we are talking about the 5 late game tips that will help maximize your account's potential. So let's sit back, grind some Stellar Jade, and let's talk about it.
That paradise may be unreachable for me.
So you finally rounded out your character and got that crit damage body piece you've been grinding for weeks, and now you have a decision to make. 1. You can continue on within the cavern and grind for a better relic in the hopes you can get better substats and rolls. Or 2. You can move on to a new character and be content with the relics you have. This is a dilemma that all players face when relic farming because it can be hard to say, you know what, this is actually decent, after 3 to 4 weeks of running the same cavern over and over again. When I go into relic farming, I have 3 different levels of satisfaction that help me decide on when to move on from a character. The first being hitting the main stats, next would be meeting the 2-piece set requirement, and finally it would be obtaining the optimal attack, crit rate, and crit damage ratio. When initially starting out farming for relics, ideally you want to be able to get the correct main stat for the set you are looking to complete regardless of substats. Whether it's a crit damage body piece, speed boots, or an elemental damage percent sphere, just getting the correct main stat to optimize damage is the first step to enhancing said characters. Now substats do play an important role in relic hunting, which is why for DPS characters, many will go through the next layer of relic satisfaction. For support units where they want to focus on effect hit rate, speed boots, or defense percent and attack percent pieces, I can see many players stopping once they acquired the right main stat. The reason for this is that the role isn't intended to do damage, which is where substats like crit rate and damage really make a character shine. This in turn helps you save resources by knowing when to stop based on the type of role a unit plays on a team. Continuing with characters who want to meet the 2-piece set criteria for the planar sphere and rope, many DPS units will want to focus on their crit rate and damage and speed to be able to achieve these extra bonuses. For support units, many will focus on the sets that emphasize effect hit rate, effect res, and speed to be able to enhance their support capabilities. Once you're able to hit these set criterias, an example being the 50% crit rate for the Salsoda set, a good number of players can feel satisfied with their character progression and move on. Now it may not be the most optimally built unit, but they will get the job done and you can work on other characters. Now the last satisfaction level focuses on substats, which as we all know is heavily influenced by RNG. Some players can spend a week and get the perfectly built character, while others will spend months only to get one subpar piece to show for it. At the end of the day, your personal satisfaction for when to stop for a certain character is up to you. But having thresholds for when to consider stopping, I believe, are most helpful to making an informed and conscious decision.
That paradise may be unreachable for me.
I totally get that we all want to build up that new limited 5-star we just pulled, but for your account to take that next step, especially in areas like Memory of Chaos, you really need to consider building up your 4-star supports that can help boost your account. Especially when our index of characters is not very high when it comes to 5-star support characters, utilizing your 4-stars, especially ones that have some really good eidolons, will see you clear content at a much faster rate. A well-known 4-star unit that you should definitely be considering investing into is the aggro queen herself, Ting Yun, while some slept-on 4-star options that I use on my own personal account are Asta and Pila. Ting Yun is a very easy unit to build, essentially using her own attack stat to enhance other allies' attack through the use of her skill. She's also very skill point positive as she only needs to use her skill once every 4 turns. Now an issue that many players have come across is the aggro, or the ability to be hit by an enemy more often that comes with having Ting Yun in your party. What have players done to circumvent this? They have decided to sacrifice some attack for HP to be able to tank more hits, evolving her to her master form, Tank Yun. In all seriousness, she is a great unit, and she is an SS tier for a reason, so invest in her if you haven't already. A free unit that you get when initially unlocking the wish feature is Asta, and as a free unit, she already has a bias towards her of not being very good. But in all honesty, she is fantastic at buffing not only your attack, but your team's speed through the use of her ultimate. Now she is definitely a universal support that can fit on any team, but I personally prefer using her on my Jingyuan team. Throw an energy regeneration rope on her and watch your team speed by the enemies with multiple hits. A character that I initially didn't build was Pila, and was solely based on aesthetic. I didn't take the time to fully understand her kit and how useful it can be, especially for units like Blade who don't work well with attack-based buffers like a Ting Yun and Yukong. What makes Pila so great is that she is the only defense debuffer that has it built into her kit, as opposed to utilizing a light cone. This makes her a fantastic option for all party members, as her defense shred helps increase all party members' DPS and not just a single ally. So utilize those 4-star support units, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at how amazing they actually are. I know I was when I first built them up, and they still hold value to this day.
That paradise may be unreachable for me.
As the MC of your Honkai Star Rail journey, hitting Trailblaze level 60 is the beginning of the endgame grind. Resources become much more scarce in comparison to the first 59 levels, and you truly have to make some tough decisions when it comes to picking who to invest in further. Now, dropping a character isn't as simple as saying, well, they aren't high on tier list. A number of different factors go into that decision, and it isn't so black and white. The things I have to consider when dropping a character are similar characters with the same role, similar characters with the same element, team comp diversity and potential, and the overall fun factor. Characters that have similar roles and similar elements can go hand in hand when making this type of decision. I can break it down into a 4-square table. If they have a similar element and similar role, then there should be no need to continue investing into the character. If they have one or the other in terms of similarity, but not both, you can make the argument that you can continue on with building them. And if they don't have a similar element or similar role, then there is nothing to really consider in terms of dropping them. Now, this logic isn't always sound when comparing a 4-star to a 5-star character because of the enhanced kit of the 5-star. An example this reminds me of is Sucrose and Kazuha in Genshin Impact. Both have similar crowd control kits, both Animo, and both EM buff supports, but one is substantially better in terms of numbers and a direct upgrade over the other. Another thing to consider when dropping a character is how they can fit in potential team comps. More niche units like Sampo may not fit in with general team comps, but can work with dot teams with Kafka as the driver. Yukong, although a great buffer, needs a bit of speed manipulation to make sure she's buffing ahead of your DPS units, but units like Pila don't need speed manipulation or a specific team comp to function. Thus, they can be a plug and play option regardless of who the DPS is. And of course, we can't forget about the fun factor that goes along with the character. A great example of this is QQ. Now, she can be classified as a 6-star character or a 3-star character. It just depends on how lucky your rolls are. But you have to admit, her playstyle is very fun to utilize. Yes, you may need to make sure your team is very skill point positive, so she can have as many uses of her skill as possible, but the payoff can be huge. On top of that, with CLA being the only true DPS quantum character, many may feel obligated to build her based on her role and element alone. Of course, you have to consider all of the factors in accordance with each other, and not just break it down one point at a time. Looking at the bigger picture but using these points as a guideline can help you figure out how best to proceed with your fringe units.
That paradise may be unreachable for me.
This one really hits home for me because I'm in this very predicament for my own account. I think this can be relatable for others as they have gathered quite a few superimpositions for 4-star Lycones and are wondering if it's even worth investing in their character's signature 5-star. The thought process could simply be, well, it's a 5-star, so it's inherently better, which to an extent is true, but you also have to consider the value that it actually brings in comparison to the current Lycone you have, and not just on its own. Now, you can consider the base HP, attack, and defense stats of the Lycones in your overall decision, but for the purposes of this video, we are strictly going to be comparing them based on their passives, as this is what provides the most value. I think some undervalued things that need to be considered when making a decision like this are, does it only help the holder or all allies on a team, and can the Lycone superimpositions be easily obtained? I believe both of these questions can help steer you in the right direction when coming across a problem like this. A current example of this issue is at S3 to S5, a Secret Vow versus Blade's signature Lycone, the unreachable side. At S5, a Secret Vow performs about 15% less than that of the S1 unreachable side, while a Secret Vow at S1 performs about 30% less. This is assuming that you are getting the second damage passive based on his HP. Now, for myself as an F2P player, it's a no-brainer to not pull on the weapon banner in this instance, as we are talking about a somewhat minimal difference. But for others, I can see how the 15% can be a huge difference for content like Memory of Chaos, while it also doesn't hurt getting stat sticks of HP and crit rate. Now, this is just a disclaimer, I never pull on the weapon banner as an F2P, as I want as many characters as possible. But if I had the ability to do so, I think for myself personally, I would draw the line at minimum S3 with the 4-star Lycone being said character's second or even third best in slot. If I have anything worse than that, I would pull, but otherwise, I would stick with my guns and continue with the current Lycone I have. I just feel like the arbitrary damage numbers you can obtain from having a 5-star Lycone don't outweigh the opportunity to bring in a new character to your account when you have a more than capable 4-star option. But this is just my opinion at the end of the day, so I don't want to dictate what you should do with your own account. But I think the things that I mentioned should definitely be considered when making a decision like this.
That paradise may be unreachable for me.
Say you just pulled Welt, the 5-star imaginary husbando who can work as both a support or a DPS unit. With access to icons like Resolution shines as pearls of sweat, to Good Night and Sleep Well, he has options for both roles. So which is best? When I get a character that can work for both roles, I first have to envision them on my team comps as well as take a deeper look at their traces to get an idea of how they should be potentially played. My immediate thoughts go straight to team compositions. Who do I see them fitting in with in terms of DPS characters? Does this team already have supports? And if so, do I really need to add another support to this team? And does their kit synergize with the overall team theme? Answering these questions will help you get an idea of which team comps your support characters can fit into, and from there you can carve out their specific role. Now that they have been slotted into a team, it's time to figure out how they should be played. There is no wrong answer, since the question we are asking ourselves is whether we want to build them for damage or support, not if. By looking at all of their traces and seeing what additional boosts they can obtain will definitely help with that. Two 4-star units that I think are good examples of this are Yukong and Pila. Yukong is an attack buffer, and with her ultimate, can give all allies an increase in crit rate and crit damage. The thing that makes her interesting is that her talent enhances her own basic attack damage, which is unique to a Harmony character. With that in mind, it could be noteworthy to build her up as a sub DPS option who utilizes her basic attacks, and not just a full support to be able to maximize her kit potential. Pila, on the other hand, is a pure support unit. Her talent and traces are centralized on her being able to regenerate energy, so she can activate her ultimate as soon as possible. She also has a great bonus trace where she is able to increase the effect hit rate of all allies by 10%, making her very useful to trigger debuffs on enemies. Now she does have traces that do enhance her damage, especially on debuffed enemies, but I find her being most beneficial in a support role and solely focusing on her effect hit rate to be able to shred her enemy defenses. Overall, there isn't a wrong way to build a character, especially with enough investment. I mean, heck, I even saw a DPS Locha a couple days ago, and that was insane. The key here is committing to one or the other, and not trying to meet in the middle. What ends up happening is your unit becomes mediocre at all, but a master of none, which leaves them susceptible to not meeting their max potential.
That paradise may be unreachable for me.
And with that, this will end our video on the 5 late game tips that'll maximize your account's potential. If you like the content, please like and subscribe. Comment down below any other struggles you have been going through as you progress through the end game. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.